Every day, you wake up with a certain amount of energy. It is your life force. Your fuel to live, to move, to create, to become. But most people never protect it. They allow it to leak quietly, invisibly, until nothing is left. And then they wonder why they feel tired, unmotivated, and lost. There are traps, not obvious traps, silent ones. Ones that take without asking. Let me share 5 of them. The moment you engage in conflict, you are opening a door for your energy to leak. Every argument, every heated exchange, every attempt to force someone to see your point of view takes more from you than you realize. It is not just the minutes or hours spent in the conversation. It is the emotional charge, the frustration, the replaying of words in your mind long after it is over. Conflict has a way of planting itself in your thoughts and growing roots. You may think you have moved on, but the mind is still running the debate, still justifying your stance, still imagining what you could have said differently. This is the unseen drain. Most people engage in unnecessary conflict out of habit. They feel the need to correct others, to defend their pride, or to prove they are right. This is especially tempting when you feel misunderstood. The urge to clarify, to make someone else see the truth from your perspective, can feel irresistible. But you must ask yourself, what will this achieve? If the other person's mind is closed, no amount of explaining will open it. If they are committed to misunderstanding you, every word you offer is a gift of your energy that they will not value. Silence can be more powerful than any counterargument. When you choose not to engage, it is not weakness, it is discipline. It is the ability to measure the worth of the battle before stepping onto the field. There is strength in knowing when to walk away. You are not avoiding truth, you are protecting your peace. The truth is, unnecessary conflict can disguise itself as righteous action. You may tell yourself you are standing up for what's right, or not letting them get away with it. But often it is just the ego wanting to be heard. The ego fears silence because silence feels like defeat, but in reality, silence is control. It is the decision to spend your energy where it matters, instead of scattering it on ground where nothing will grow. It is important to understand that energy spent in unnecessary conflict is rarely recovered quickly. When you argue, you may feel a rush of adrenaline, but afterward comes a heaviness. This heaviness lingers in the body and the mind. You might notice you have less patience, less creativity, less focus for the rest of the day. It is as if that one argument stole hours of your potential. When you make it a practice to avoid unnecessary conflict, you will notice more space in your mind. You will feel lighter, calmer, and more present. You will no longer be carrying the invisible weight of other people's negativity, and this is where your energy begins to multiply. When it is no longer being poured into the wrong places, the skill lies in discernment, knowing which battles are worth your time and which are not. Ask yourself, does this affect my life in a meaningful way? Will this matter a month from now? Will engaging in this conversation move me closer to peace or pull me further away from it? If the answer points toward loss, then step back. The world is full of noise, and not every noise deserves your reply. There is wisdom in letting the echo fade without you adding to it. From the time we are children, we are taught to look outside ourselves for approval. We are praised when we meet expectations and corrected when we fall short. This pattern becomes so ingrained that even as adults, we often measure our worth through the eyes of others. Every decision, every step forward, is silently weighed against the imagined reactions of those around us. The problem is, when your sense of worth depends on someone else's approval, you are never truly free. You are living on a leash held by the opinions of others, even if they are unspoken. Seeking validation is an endless pursuit because human approval is unpredictable. One day you may be celebrated, the next you may be criticized, sometimes for the exact same action. You cannot control the shifting moods, biases, and expectations of people, and yet, if you live for their approval, you are letting them control you. This is a constant drain on your energy because your focus is always outward, on how you are perceived, on whether you are liked, on whether you measure up in someone else's eyes. The subtle trap is that validation feels good in the moment. A compliment, a word of praise, a sign of acceptance. These can give you a temporary high, like a spark of warmth in cold air. But like all fleeting highs, it fades quickly, leaving you looking for the next dose. It is not sustainable fuel. It keeps you chasing instead of resting in your own self-worth. The more you depend on it, the more your energy is spent trying to maintain an image rather than living your truth. When you act only for validation, your decisions stop belonging to you. You may choose a career, a partner, a lifestyle, not because it fulfills you, but because it will be admired. You begin to silence your real desires if they might cause disapproval. Over time, this creates a quiet exhaustion, not the tiredness of hard work, but the fatigue of living a life that is not fully yours. Every moment you suppress your true self to fit into someone else's expectations, you trade your energy for acceptance that will never be permanent. Breaking free from this trap begins with a simple but difficult shift, valuing your own opinion above all others. This does not mean rejecting feedback or ignoring wise counsel. It means your final measure of worth comes from within. It means looking in the mirror and knowing you acted in alignment with your values, regardless of who clapped or who turned away. It means asking yourself, do I approve of this? Before wondering if anyone else does. When you no longer chase validation, you stop bending yourself into shapes that do not fit. You conserve the energy that would have been spent monitoring other people's reactions. You begin to live with more directness, more clarity, more peace. This kind of inner approval is unshakable because it does not depend on changing conditions. It is rooted in self-respect. The truth is, not everyone will understand you, and not everyone needs to. Some will misinterpret your choices, some will judge them, and some will ignore them entirely. That is not your concern. Your concern is whether you can stand by your actions without shame or regret. When your own approval becomes your compass, you will find that much of the exhaustion you once carried disappears. Energy that was once spent trying to be enough for others becomes available for living fully as yourself. The mind is like a room, and every thought, memory, and emotion is an object within it. Some of these objects are beautiful and inspiring, but many are heavy and take up space. Grudges, regrets, and old pain are the heaviest of all. They do not just sit quietly in a corner. They demand your attention. They color your perception. And they quietly drain the energy you need for living today. Emotional clutter is often invisible to others, but you feel its weight every time you replay a past conversation or relive a hurt that happened years ago. Holding on to grudges may feel justified. After all, you were wronged, betrayed, or hurt. The mind convinces you that keeping this memory alive somehow protects you from being hurt again. But in reality, it binds you to the moment of pain, keeping it alive long after it should have passed. Every time you think of that person or that event, you hand over a piece of your energy to a past that no longer exists. The person who hurt you may not even remember, but you carry the wound as if it happened yesterday. This is the cost of holding on. Regret works in a similar way, but instead of focusing on others, it turns inward. It is the replay of mistakes, the constant, if only, scenarios that run through your mind. Regret tells you that you should have acted differently, spoken differently, chosen differently. And while reflection can be valuable, regret is not reflection. It is self-punishment. It chains you to a version of yourself that no longer exists, preventing you from stepping into the version you could become. Emotional clutter is not always loud. Sometimes it hides in the background like a hum you've grown used to. You may not even notice how much it is draining you until you begin to let it go. It is like carrying a bag of stones every day without realizing how heavy it is. simply because you've carried it for so long. But the moment you set it down, you feel lighter, freer, and more present. Letting go does not mean forgetting or pretending something never happened. It means choosing not to keep it alive in your mind. It means releasing the need to replay the details, to assign blame, to relive the emotion again and again. Forgiveness is one path to this, but even without forgiveness, you can choose release. You can decide that your peace is worth more than your attachment to the pain. When you release emotional clutter, you create space. Space for new thoughts, new experiences, and new energy to flow. The mind becomes clearer, decisions become easier, and your emotional reactions become calmer. Without the constant background noise of old pain, you can hear yourself more clearly. You can be more present with the people and moments in front of you. The key is awareness. You must notice when your mind is drifting into the past, when it is rehearsing old hurts or regrets. Each time you catch yourself, you have a choice. Continue feeding the memory or gently set it down. At first, it may feel unnatural because you are used to carrying it. But with time, the habit of release becomes stronger than the habit of holding on. Life gives you only so much energy each day, and every bit spent on grudges and regrets is energy taken away from living now. The past cannot be changed, but it can be released. When you unclutter the mind, you find that your capacity for joy, focus, and peace expands in ways you may not have imagined. There is a quiet pressure in the modern world to always be available, to always say yes when asked, and to fill every empty space in your schedule. For many, this pressure is disguised as responsibility, kindness, or ambition. You want to help, you want to be dependable, you want to take every opportunity that comes your way. But slowly, without realizing it, you begin to give more than you have. You begin to stretch yourself thinner and thinner, until there is no room left for rest, reflection, or simply being. Overcommitment does not always appear as chaos. Sometimes it looks like a calendar full of good things, meetings, projects, social events, favors for friends, extra work you volunteered for. Each one may seem harmless or even enjoyable on its own, but together they create a constant demand on your energy. Every yes you give without considering your limits is a withdrawal from the account of your well-being. When this account runs low, it affects everything: your focus, your mood, your health, and even your relationships. Many people fear that saying no will make them seem selfish or unkind. They worry that others will be disappointed, that opportunities will be lost, or that they will appear less committed. But the truth is, constantly overcommitting is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of neglecting your own boundaries. When you say yes to everything, you are often saying no to yourself, to your needs, and to the space required for your own growth. There is also a deeper cost to overcommitment: the loss of presence. When your schedule is too full, you move from one task to the next without fully experiencing any of them. Your mind is already on the next thing before the current one is finished. You may be physically present in a conversation or an event, but your thoughts are scattered. This scattered attention drains more energy than the tasks themselves. It creates a sense of constant motion without true progress. Learning to say no begins with recognizing your limits. Your time is not infinite, and neither is your energy. Every commitment should be weighed against its value to your life and its cost to your well-being. It is not about rejecting every request. It is about choosing consciously. When you protect your time, you also protect the quality of what you give. A well-rested, focused, and present version of you can contribute far more than a tired, distracted, and overextended one. It is also important to understand that rest is not wasted time. Rest is where clarity is born, where creativity recovers, and where emotional balance is restored. When you fill every space in your life with commitments, you leave no room for this renewal. Over time, the lack of rest not only drains your energy, but also dulls your spirit. You lose the spark that makes your work, your relationships, and your presence meaningful. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for yourself and for others is to pause before you commit. Take a breath, consider the request, and ask yourself, does this align with my priorities? Do I have the capacity to give this my full attention without harming my own balance? Will saying yes here means saying no to something more important? If the answers are not clear, give yourself permission to decline. Saying no is not closing the door on opportunity. It is opening the door to a life lived with intention. It is the choice to give your best energy to what truly matters, rather than scattering it across endless demands. And in protecting your time and spirit, you protect the very source of your strength. Change is the constant thread woven through every life. Seasons shift, relationships evolve, careers take new paths, and even your own thoughts and desires transform over time. Yet, despite its inevitability, many people fight against change with all their strength. They cling to what was, trying to keep it alive, even when it has already moved on. This resistance may feel like safety, but in reality, it is one of the most exhausting uses of your energy. When you resist change, you are caught between two worlds, the reality that exists now and the reality you wish still existed. This in-between state is heavy. It requires constant mental effort to maintain illusions, to avoid accepting what is in front of you. You might replay memories of better times, try to recreate past circumstances, or deny that a shift has taken place at all. But all the while, life is moving forward, and you are spending your strength trying to stand still in a river that never stops flowing. The fear of change often comes from uncertainty. You know the shape and texture of what you have now, even if it is not perfect. The unknown feels threatening because it cannot be controlled. The mind clings to the familiar, thinking it is protecting you, but what it is really doing is holding you back. It keeps you in situations that have already ended, roles that no longer fit, and mindsets that no longer serve you. There is also grief in change, even in changes that are ultimately good for you. Something is always left behind, a version of yourself, a way of life, a person you cared about, or a dream you once believed in. Allowing yourself to acknowledge that loss is healthy, but holding on to it beyond its time is where the drain begins. You start living more in memory than in the present, and the energy that could be used to adapt and grow is instead spent on resisting what has already arrived. When you accept change, you free yourself from the exhausting task of fighting reality. You stop trying to force life to return to an old shape and start working with the shape it is taking now. This does not mean you must like every change, but it does mean you allow yourself to move with it rather than against it. There is power in adaptability, and adaptability preserves energy. Instead of pouring your strength into resistance, you can direct it toward finding opportunities in the new landscape. Acceptance also opens the door to perspective. When you are no longer fixated on how things used to be, you can see possibilities you could not have noticed before. What once felt like loss may reveal itself as space for growth, for new relationships, for unexplored paths. Life often gives you something different than what you wanted, but that different can hold value you could not have imagined at the time. This is not about giving up control entirely. It is about understanding which things are within your power to change and which are not. You cannot stop time, you cannot reverse certain endings, and you cannot force others to remain the same. But you can control your response. You can decide whether you will spend your days resisting the inevitable or moving with it in a way that preserves your peace. Every moment spent clinging to what has already shifted is a moment taken from the present. And the present is where life is happening now, where your energy has the power to shape what comes next. When you accept change, you take that energy back. You return it to yourself, ready to use in the world as it is, not as it was. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Wherever you place it, your energy follows, and whatever you give it to grows stronger in your life. Yet in the modern world, attention is constantly under attack. Every notification, every headline, every distraction is designed to pull your focus away from what matters most. When you allow your attention to scatter across countless small interruptions, you drain your energy without even realizing it. The mind can only hold so much at once. When it is filled with fragments of half-finished tasks, random pieces of information, and ongoing digital noise, it becomes restless. This restlessness is costly. It prevents you from fully engaging in the work, conversations, and experiences that truly matter. You might believe you are multitasking and being productive, but in reality, you are splitting your energy into too many thin streams. None of them have enough power to create meaningful results. Guarding your attention begins with awareness. You have to notice what is stealing it. It could be your phone lighting up every few minutes, a constant stream of news, or conversations that add nothing of value. Sometimes the thieves are internal, worries about the future, replaying past mistakes, or drifting into unproductive daydreams. Every time your attention is pulled away without your consent, a small amount of energy goes with it. Over the course of a day, this adds up to a heavy loss. Choosing where to place your attention is an act of self-respect. It means you decide which inputs are allowed into your mind, and you consciously limit those that drain you. It may mean turning off notifications, setting boundaries around social media, or creating spaces in your day when you are unreachable. It could also mean limiting your exposure to people who constantly bring negativity or drama into your life. Protecting your attention in this way is not selfish. It is essential to preserving the energy you need for your priorities. When your attention is scattered, even small tasks feel harder than they should. You may notice that you reread the same sentence several times, forget what you were doing midway through a task, or struggle to finish something you started. This is not a sign that you lack discipline. It is a sign that your attention has been drained by too many competing demands. Focusing deeply on one thing at a time allows your energy to move like a powerful stream instead of a shallow trickle. Guarding your attention also means being intentional about what you feed your mind. What you read, watch, and listen to shapes your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your energy. If you constantly consume content that leaves you anxious, angry, or depleted, it will show in the way you feel and act. Choosing uplifting, meaningful, and challenging inputs is like giving your mind clean fuel. It sustains you instead of draining you. It is also important to recognize that attention is not infinite. Every day, you wake up with a limited amount of focus you can give. Spending it on distractions means you will have less left for the goals, relationships, and experiences that matter. This is why protecting it is just as important as managing your time. Time without attention is useless. Being physically present means little if your mind is elsewhere. By guarding your attention, you create the conditions for clarity, productivity, and peace. You stop scattering your energy into places that give nothing back, and instead channel it toward what you want to grow in your life. And as your attention becomes more focused, you begin to notice that your energy too becomes more abundant. In the quiet moments, when you pause to reflect, you begin to see how your energy is spent, not just in the big decisions, but in the small, silent ways each day. The traps that drain you are subtle but powerful, stealing your strength without your notice. By learning to avoid unnecessary conflict, releasing the need for outside approval, letting go of emotional burdens, setting boundaries against overcommitment, embracing change, and guarding your attention, you reclaim the energy that is truly yours. This energy is the foundation of your well-being, your creativity, and your peace. Protect it fiercely, nurture it wisely, and watch how your life transforms. Not because the world around you changes, but because you do.